And I've never forgotten how wonderful the people are here. But you know something, Don? It saddens me to see that Rochester, like so many other communities around the country, is wrestling with an escalating drug abuse problem. But there's hope. There's a brand new scientific breakthrough that may help eliminate bonds of crack, cocaine, heroin, alcohol, and even tobacco. Police say some of our Rochester neighborhoods have become drug supermarkets for outsiders.
We've had people as far away as Pennsylvania and other states, rural areas, suburban Monroe County areas.
Those who deal in drugs live in a violent and dangerous world. This memorial on the wall at the Avenue D Recreational Center is a sober reminder of the 300 children murdered between 1990 and 1994 in Rochester. Genesee Section's youth officer Tom Shaw says there's plenty of youths willing to take their chances in order to earn $40 to $50 a day dealing in drugs.
Just from my experience and from my own personal investigations in this particular Southwest area, I would have to say a good 30%.
30%?
Yeah.
Of the kids in some way or another either dealing or using?
Yep.
The arrest rate for violent crimes among 11 to 16-year-olds has risen dramatically between 1984 and 1994, especially in the city. Jack Rosati of the Monroe County Youth Center says most of the kids he takes in come from families destabilized by drugs.
We have those kids, obviously, to buy, those kids that sell. We have those kids that are really victims of abuse and neglect within their own families because their parents may be drug users.
For example, we talked to one parent who is now in drug treatment. We're hiding her identity to protect her child. She vividly recalls why her son began selling drugs.
But 13, he's in the foster home.
But he went out?
Yeah, at 8, 9 years old.
Was that because he knew that you used?
Yes.
This is Rochester's Sister City Bridge, where flags fly representing the 8 countries where Rochester has a sister city around the world. Now, would you believe that the potential answer to our nation's drug addiction problem lies in a neighboring country to our African sister city, Bamako, Mali? Little did we know that about a 4-hour plane ride south of Bamako is a tiny country in West Central Africa called Gabon. In the Gabonese rainforest grows a shrub called Tabernacle iboga, and from its roots is extracted an amazing drug called Ibogaine. Now, Ibogaine has been proven to eliminate an addict's craving, as we mentioned before, for all kinds of drugs, everything from crack, cocaine, to heroin, to alcohol and tobacco. And Don, the amazing thing is that it happens without any withdrawal symptoms. And as we know, that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks for an addict to try to kick his habit.
We've heard of methadone, some other things that are out there, but curious as why we've never heard of Ibogaine before.
Well, you know, I'm curious about that myself. We did some
of our community's drug problems. Al, we talked a little bit about this last night and brought us up to the point where really we're anxious to know, I think, more about what
Absolutely, and I'm delighted to tell you the rest of the story tonight. You know, Don, Ibogaine promises to be a major scientific breakthrough in the treatment of drug and alcohol addiction. It's been tested on addicts outside the country, and now, for the first time, the Food and Drug Administration has authorized testing of Ibogaine in the U.S. Here's the fascinating story of how this came about, even though our government has kept Ibogaine a secret for over 40 years. When Channel 13 sent me along with our Rochester delegation to visit our African sister city 18 years ago, little did I realize then how close Bamako, Mali was to the location of one of the world's most significant discoveries in fighting drug addiction. About a 4-hour plane ride south of Mali is the tiny nation of Gabon in central West Africa. In the rainforest of Gabon grows a shrub called Tabernacle iboga. For thousands of years, the Gabonese chewed the roots of the iboga plant during the rite of passage of young boys into manhood. In the early part of this century, French scientists first purified the extract from the iboga root and called it Ibogaine. Over the years, scientists in Europe and the United States conducted Ibogaine experiments on animals to better understand how it works. And according to these government records, in the 1950s, the CIA funded secret experiments of using Ibogaine on humans at the Federal Narcotics Hospital in Lexington, Kentucky. And we discovered this letter written by Dr. Harris Isbell, director of the CIA-funded project. He said his tests were performed on unsuspecting black former morphine addicts. None of the patients knew what the drug was and were given no hints. To this day, it isn't clear why the CIA was testing Ibogaine. But the fact is, the results of Dr. Isbell's experiments have vanished into the secret archives of the CIA or the Department of Defense, never to be seen again. And perhaps Ibogaine never would have become possible for treatment of drug addiction today if it wasn't for this man, 52-year-old Howard Lutzoff of Staten Island. Lutzoff says he believed he had found a cure for drug addiction, but he says nobody in the government would listen to him then. Lutzoff has since patented his own Ibogaine treatment procedures. He began running experiments in Holland.
They put heroin right in my face and asked me to use some for free. And I had no desire whatsoever to use it, and I turned it down. That was the first time I'd ever turned down heroin.
Well, Don, of course, the reason Lutzoff did his test in Holland is because Ibogaine was banned in the U.S. around the early 70s.
You're welcome is on that.
Now, tomorrow I might mention, Don, that we're going to be go on and have some more interesting things in our series, and we're going to be visiting a drug treatment center here in Rochester, and we're going to see how Ibogaine might play a very important part in that treatment center.
And those famous words people are waiting to hear?
We'll be watching.
All right. Thank you, Will. All this week with a special report, and tonight we're going to conclude Al White's special assignment on Ibogaine. Now, some say Ibogaine could be the answer to Rochester's drug problem. Al is back with more now to tell us what he has found out. Al?
Well, Don, you know, Ibogaine is a story of one man's fight to make this anti-addiction drug available to communities like Rochester. Through Howard Lutzoff's efforts, Ibogaine has finally been approved for human testing in the U.S. But before the FDA gave that approval, Lutzoff patented his own Ibogaine treatment procedures under the name Indabuse and successfully treated dozens of addicts in Holland.
You're completely clean. You feel rejuvenated, and you don't have any cravings. That's a really important thing.
And Adam says when he visited his heroin dealer after treatment,
and these were people that I smoked heroin with every day, people who have been addicted for 25 years to heroin, who had never heard of any abuse. And these people couldn't believe it. They had never seen somebody stop using the amount of heroin that I had used on a daily basis, like that, overnight, literally.
Lutzoff says his data, supported by animal research, has now allowed the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, to start human studies in the United States. The FDA has given Dr. Sanchez Ramos at the University of Miami permission to begin those studies. Results could be 3 years away. The news of Lutzoff's Ibogaine test spread like wildfire through the grassroots organizations like this AIDS activist group, headquartered at 9 Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village. Dana Beal heads up the office. How often would someone have to get an Ibogaine treatment?
Just once. That's the thing about it. It's not a maintenance drug like methadone. This is the first drug where when the drug effect wears off, they're free of the addiction.
Beal is excited because it could have a significant impact on the number of HIV addicts.
They still may be prone sometime in the future to get back to drugs because of all their problems and predispositions. Mm-hmm. But the physical addiction and the mental craving are gone.
It is estimated that 7 out of every 10 prison inmates are behind bars because of crimes related to drugs. So just imagine what the social impact of Ibogaine might be.
If the tests on humans are successful, Ibogaine could be a lifesaver for addicts recovering at Rochester Health Association's MainQuest Treatment Center. It's a 2-year program that begins with initial crisis intervention, detoxing until stabilized, and plenty of group counseling.
Living life on life's terms. That's what it's about, you know what I mean?
Eventually, patients graduate to a halfway house and outpatient status as they learn to cope in the straight world.
50%, 60%, 70% of the time we can get people to succeed.
Some therapists believe Ibogaine will greatly enhance the chances for success in treatment programs like MainQuest.
I could see that there could be some individuals who need some sort of assistance. And in that sense, it could be a help to them.
Now, unfortunately, Ibogaine is only in experimental stage and is not an approved drug by the FDA. It could take 3 or 4 more years of testing before it is declared safe. But in time, Ibogaine may be the answer to Rochester's addiction problems.
People that may be interested, want to know what stands in the way, or what can people do to
I would. That's a great question. I would encourage anybody, if they're interested in this, to contact their congressman and let them know that it's crucial that there be funding available to expedite the testing of this drug, because it's really important.
And your reports this week have brought some people forward we're going to hear tonight.
Yes, we have a real treat for you for the 11 o'clock news tonight. We have a gentleman who saw our report and called up and says, hey, I took Ibogaine. I'm an addict, and I took Ibogaine, and it saved my life. We're going to have his report tonight. Fascinating.
Okay, thank you.
It's like being dead and coming back to life again.
This 28-year-old Rochester man should know. He was in a living hell and wanted to die. He asked us to conceal his identity. We'll call him Tom.
I started when I was 14, but I crossed the line when I was 20 years old when I first smoked cocaine.
But in the end, drugs almost killed Tom. Finally, after he relocated to Florida, he says his mother saw a newspaper article about Ibogaine experiments at the University of Miami. They contacted a doctor mentioned in the paper.
She wrote back. The letter made her cry. And she says, you're a good candidate for this program.
Was this treatment free?
And it cost $15,000.
To go into the Ibogaine treatment?
Yeah, they had to do it outside of the United States because it's not approved by the FDA.
It took another 1.5 years before Tom traveled to this clinic in Panama for his Ibogaine treatment. So what did Ibogaine treatment do for you?
The cravings removed, the obsessions removed. You don't even feel like using. You feel like you're pure. You don't even want to smoke a cigarette because you just feel so cleansed. You know, you just feel everything's gone.
How long has it been since you went through your treatment?
Almost 2 years.
And you're clean?
Yeah.
I'm Al White for News Source 13, and we'll be watching.